pals of the safe space. I'm Sasha Kotiana, and we have here my pal Royce Smith, also known as the Arranger. He has been a dear friend of mine, actually, for now way too many years because of me. My problem is Royce and I got connected about music, and I've been very slow in moving forward with the music we've created. But he has some killer music out there to enjoy, and also has a killer perspective on life and music and his journey. And so, Royce, I'm excited, the arranger, I'm excited to have you here. How are you today?
I am awesome.
Good. Oh, good.
Very good.
Yeah. Yeah, I first wanted to just give people a little context about you and your story with music and drumming. Can you tell people like a quick synopsis of the man and the mystery that we get to be in the presence of right now?
Um, sure. Quick synopsis. Started playing drums a good 20 some odd years ago. Through school, college, and then professionally with the Atlanta Hawks basketball team, and that led to us performing on TV a number of times. We did the Drumline 2 movie. Um,
Yeah.
and that was like the whole drumming thing. And then I'll go back in '05, '06. I started producing very badly, but I started.
Hmm.
um, and I've been doing it ever since. Fell in love with making music and just hearing it in my head and being able to hear it back. um, so yeah, I've been just kind of doing it ever since. I stepped into the streaming world in 2018, and yeah, it's kind of just been going ever since.
I love it. I think
Yeah,
2018 may be about when we got connected.
yeah,
So I've
I
only
think so.
seen the post streaming life journey, but it's been so cool to see you embrace your role as a producer, but also embrace the role of instrumental music and the power that it holds.
Oh, yeah.
And I know earlier you said you want your music to stand just as strongly as music with vocals. Can you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, I would love to. So the idea of actually putting myself out there as a producer and I guess slash artist was I basically okay, so I'm a big Jay Dilla fan. For those who don't know, Jay Dilla is the pioneer of lo-fi hip hop. Um Jay Dilla used to do it, and I'm sure it wasn't anything new, but he had a thing called beat tapes, and it was basically just beats that he would compile and hand them out to people. Um, and they were just kind of snippets of 50, 60 beats that he did. And I kind of took that and said, well, I would like to do a body of work. So a beat tape, but it's actually, instead of just being snippets, they're full songs. Um, and just being able to yeah, I wanted the songs to be just as strong as songs with lyrics, because they were, it's like these are feelings that you feel, like music
Mhm.
can express emotion. So I figure the nonverbal would be just as strong, so yeah.
And I love your music. My family and I will throw your music on sometimes on a long drive
Oh,
because it's just feel good vibes that doesn't make my son become a lunatic, and it's not Super Mario music.
yeah, I appreciate
And
that.
it's something for the whole family, which I love.
Yeah.
So, when you are creating and writing music, what would you say is your biggest inspiration?
Ooh, that's a good question. Honestly, probably what first comes to mind is just how I feel. Again, with the feelings, at the moment, it's literally just like I don't go into sitting down in front of my computer and going, all right, I'm making a hip hop beat today, or I'm making a
Mm.
pop track. Like I literally just am like, what do I feel like making?
Mhm.
Now, oftentimes that changes, because as the creative juices start flowing, then ideas pop up, and I'm gonna try this, I'm gonna try that, and sooner rather than later, I have something that sounds good. I hope sounds good,
Yes.
and yeah, I mean, but yeah, just to answer your question, like the biggest inspiration will probably be just how I feel at the moment when I sit in front of the computer.
Mm, I love that. It's organic
Yeah, very,
and
very.
authentic. So I know that we've connected a bit in the past about our kind of, I don't know, tandem spiritual journeys through dogma, out of dogma. Tell us a little bit about that background for you.
Okay, so my background is from the South, so I grew up in a fairly traditional Baptist church. Um, and I mean, it was a good place, as far as like, if that's what you're into, that's what your faith revolves around. It's a great church home. Um, it there was nothing wrong as far as like, being, extreme or anything, outside of your normal, just dealing with people who act one way on Sunday and then they act
Oh,
another
sure.
way,
Mhm.
you know, the other 6 days of the week. So that was, it was perfectly normal in my opinion. But what got me, I guess, kind of questioning, um, was just hearing certain things, and and I'm referring to like things in the Bible, things that the pastor would stand in front of us and talk about every Sunday. Things just didn't really feel right, Um,
Mm,
but of course, you get told don't question anything, and it's God works in mysterious ways and all that stuff. So I'm like, okay, but then the need to question got stronger as I got older, and stronger and stronger and stronger. So
mhm,
it just kind of became one of those things where it's like I need answers to these questions, and I wasn't getting them from church.
mhm.
So
Did you also receive a lot of that, like, "fuck your feelings" messaging in church?
absolutely. Yeah, that was pretty strong.
Yeah.
Because again, I mean, I don't think anyone means harm, or most people mean you harm. I think they're just going with what they're told. And if they then sit in front of a leader of the church that tells them, look, the Bible says you don't question God, you don't go against, you don't, I think people just follow what they've been instructed to do, and that's totally fine. But for me, I wanted answers that I was not going to get. But so yeah, to go back to your question, yeah, I got told many times, um, yeah, you crazy, you crazy, you tripping, you doing
Mm,
too much, you asking too many questions, you
mm,
going into some stuff you don't understand. You need to just read your Bible more, you know. Um, and I'm like,
mhm.
yeah, okay, all right. So it kind of made me retreat and sit there and take it for a little while longer. Then the fun happened.
And then what happened?
Then the fun happened. The fun, I refer to the fun as that's me saying like I learned and figured out, okay, I can't go to these people that have known me forever and I grew up in this church with for these answers, because they're going to give me the religious belief and what I should be doing and how I should be listening to my faith and following faith, and
Mhm,
which again, it's not those aren't bad responses, but they don't work for someone who's looking for more.
mm.
And what I did was I learned who to ask questions to, and I learned what questions to ask,
Yes.
to differentiate between. The biggest thing I think was differentiating between you giving me an answer that is from a religious aspect or perspective
Mhm.
and a historical fact.
Mm.
because
Mhm.
and then in between that you have the I think the proper term is mythos, where you believe in something so much that it is real to you,
Mhm.
but it's still just a belief.
Mhm.
As much as people may not want to admit that, it's a strong belief, but it's still just belief, you know.
Mhm. Well, you bring up an interesting topic because spirituality and science tend to be sort of at war in the public lexicon, right? Like we don't consider them to be congruent.
Right.
I will say I personally don't have that belief. I actually love and appreciate where science and spirituality intersect, but I understand the difference and the struggle between belief and fact. What are your
Mhm.
thoughts on that?
So I'm with you. I believe that they both have a place. Um,
Mm.
Depending on your religious journey or spiritual journey or whatever you want to call it, they can intersect. Um, if you don't mind, I'll just kind of go a little bit into what I'm referring to when I say they intersect. So, like, I'm a believer in African spirituality, and more specifically, the Kemetic side of that, meaning Egypt before it was Egypt. Um, our When I say our, I mean darker skinned people. Our ancestors believed in what we'll call spiritual folklore, which is what you get when you say the gods
Mhm.
do this and do that, but then where the gods and the spiritual folklore intersected with science was, hey, the spiritual folklore is based on things I can actually see
Mhm.
and touch and observe, and um you know in African spirituality there's a strong connection to nature and the cosmos, things you can see and touch.
Mhm.
So that's what I mean by they intersect. And while they can be separate entities, they can also blend. And
Mhm.
in today's world, I never understood that. I never understood going to church and hearing one story about how the world was created, and then going to school and hearing another story. But
Mm.
then if you ask questions about either in the opposite environment, you get kind of
Side-eye.
you know.
Yes.
I don't
Well,
know.
and I think when people talk about science, they largely mean Western science, right? And I had a conversation recently about indigenous science, right? That
Hmm.
there is a whole science to these ancient cultures and indigenous practices that isn't at arm's length, right? Western science requires us to just trust someone else's expertise a lot of times.
Absolutely.
Whereas indigenous science tends to rely on first person observation and experience. And I love that that is gaining credence again
Yeah.
in, these Gen Z and millennials who are just like ready to tear shit down.
Hmm.
I
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
I just found out, so this is a quick side note,
Hmm.
but I just found out that my ancestors are Taino, like my
Okay.
ancient ancestors from Coamo, Puerto Rico. Are
Yeah, down in that
Taino.
area. Yeah.
Yeah, and learning about that culture and seeing all these people who actually look like me, who function like me, has been really empowering.
Absolutely.
And so, as you've looked into the ancient Egyptian spirituality, what are some of those things that you've taken with you for today that
Ooh, a lot. Um, I've definitely learned the importance of thinking critically and thinking for yourself
mm,
and being curious, um, and not being afraid to find those answers that you're curious about. Um, I've learned self empowerment, and just being being self reliant, um, in in terms of saying, okay, look, like it's fine to pray, meditate, and do whatever you need to do to get, I guess, inspiration or power from a divine source. But there's a strong, strong teaching in African spirituality that says, look, you can do all that, but you got to do like the other 99% of everything.
Right. Right.
So it's like and a lot of that, when I say self-empowerment, I don't just mean the motivation to get up and be like, yeah, I am somebody. Like, yeah, that's all, that's part of it, but it's that thing where it's like, look, I want a certain thing to happen in my life, or I want certain things to happen in my life. I need to make them happen.
Mm,
I need to focus my energy, I need to focus my will on making these things happen. And that that takes confidence. That takes, you being able to say, forget what people tell me I can't do something. Or why are you trying to do that? You can't do it. Like, it's like, no, it's like, no, you can't do it. Not only can I do it, I'm going to do it.
mhm.
African spirituality is one of those things that I have, like, it's really been extremely just, look, like, you are more than what you know,
Mm,
what anyone's ever told you. You're more than what the world tells you. You're more,
mm,
way, way, way more. And I love that about it. In a world where we are told not to do something, we can't do something. Um, you're not smart enough to do that. You can't do that. You don't have enough. Whatever. Like, it's so much negativity. And
mhm.
what I've taken from it, one of the biggest things I've taken from it is to, I don't even hear that stuff.
I
So
love that.
yeah.
Some of my favorite creators on TikTok are the like, this is gonna make you laugh probably, but the
Mhm.
Delulu is the Salulu people,
Okay.
where it's like being delusional is the solution. Just be delusional about what you want
Yeah.
instead of, diminished by other people's thoughts and expectations. Let me ask you this though, which is maybe a little bit too real, but
Go for it.
you're allowed to decline any question. How do you reconcile this message of ancient Egyptian spirituality with what we see so much culturally, especially in America right now, about the victimization of Black people? And what are your thoughts on that messaging?
Hmm. So let me make sure I understand your question. You're saying, how do I reconcile following Egyptian spirituality in this day and age with the treatment, if you will, of Black people in America? Is that kind of what you're asking?
That's a really, that I would love to hear. And I want to know what you think about the message of like, you are more than you think you are,
Oh,
reconciled with this constant conversation about harms to the Black community in America.
okay. So my answer may be a little dark. I'm just gonna throw it out there.
Can handle it.
Yeah, I I honestly think that a lot of us are conditioned to, I don't want to say accept it, but that may be what I'm trying to say. But I feel like coming out of, or excuse me, coming into the mindset of you are more than what the world tells you in this social climate, um it's almost frowned upon because so many of us are conditioned to not think so. I've got
Mhm.
more, uh, I don't know, shunning and, oh, you don't believe and you don't do this and you don't do that. And I've gotten that more from our people than anybody.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, when I talk to someone who is not of black blood, they're like, "Oh, that's so cool."
Mm.
They now whether it's whether it's genuine or not, I don't know. But when it comes down to just the on the surface conversation, it's like, wow, that's fascinating. I would love to know more about that. Whereas from some of my own people, it's been crazy.
Yeah.
You know, so I hope I'm answering your question, but I think the with that mindset of just being like, look, man, this is not the way my or our lives are supposed to be. Um, it's a little difficult because so many of us are I'm gonna say it are indoctrinated,
Mhm.
and not just in the religious aspect. It's our social status, our treatment, like you said, is it's kind of like, yeah, that's just how it is. And no one wants to, not no one. A lot of people are afraid to go against that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's so powerfully stated from you because what I keep observing is all of these non people of color feeling like it's their job to recognize the harms to people of color and colonization and white supremacy,
Mhm.
which it is. It
Yeah,
is. And that's all they want to talk about.
yeah.
And so then we just stay in this conversation of like, black people have been harmed, BIPOC have been harmed, the harm, the harm, the harm. And now my platform is someone who cares about the harm, but I'm not actually doing anything to better it. Right. And so I've just been sitting back looking and going, is this conversation about the harm really helping us right now? Is it really helping the community?
No, not in my opinion, it isn't. And I know you probably weren't really asking me that question, but
No, please.
I,
I would love
I
to
don't
know.
I don't think it is. We even do it to ourselves, as in our music, our movies, um, entertainment. I think is like probably the biggest form of reaching the most amount of people,
Mhm.
and we talk about black film, especially. I mean, how much trauma do we have to watch?
Mm.
Black trauma, excuse me. How much black
Mm.
trauma do we have to watch? Now, what like we can do all the other things. There's a handful of movies that are not traumatic, but are black films. But I feel like the majority is like, man, like it's like we don't need many more slave movies.
Yeah.
We don't like we get it. Now I'm not saying we should forget about that part of history. I'm not saying that.
Don't mean
But
to
in
laugh.
terms but we can move into some of the things that we've been a part of that have been amazing for our people.
Mm.
Um, true enough, being able to come out of a enslaved situation is amazing as well. But we get a lot of that, and it's like we don't have many like triumphant black,
Mm.
things to see, and it's just like I've wondered to myself, is that because it's like this is what we need? Do our people that make these things, do they feel like we need to see this stuff over and over again?
Mm.
Is it that we don't get funded to make other things? I mean, I don't know. Like I would love to see not, you know, their version of a black, or their thing, but it's black, but it's black. I would love to see just a black superhero, a black um Avengers, whatever you call it, story that lasts 20 years. 20 movies of.
Yeah.
You know, I would love to see that. And it doesn't have to be the black Spider-Man or the black. It can be our own. I'm not just referring to superhero movies, but I mean
Mm.
everything. You
Mhm.
know, it can be not just slave film and black trauma from the 50s that people had to deal with, and
Mhm.
it's a lot, but
So funny you mention that because I feel like the Black Panther was such a cool for me, such a cool way of seeing black culture and community. And yet, ironically, we have this like trauma story played out in is it Chadwick
Chadwick Boseman.
Chadwick Boseman, right? Like it to me it was like is this real life? Like now we're like we have this triumphant Black Panther sort of black powerful community
Mhm.
and yet we're still watching this story play out which, no one planned or, created, but I just thought that was really interesting and honestly kind of deeply frustrating for me. And
Yeah.
I love that we're talking about this because I have really had to take a step back and go like what is my contribution to the conversation publicly about black people, Puerto Ricans and my cultures? What is my contribution? And in large part it was nothing for a long time and then for a while I got sucked into like overindulging in the harm conversation
Mhm.
and now I'm just like I'm going to immerse myself in the triumph
Yeah,
and
you have to.
share that as much as possible.
You you have to, because if you let the world tell you, then that's all it's going to be is trauma. That's all
Mm.
it's going to be is, well, y'all were down here, now you're here, and you made some steps, but you're still inferior, so don't get too excited. Like,
Mhm.
that's what the world will tell you if you let it. So you have to kind of just say, okay, look, I know where we came from, I know what happened, but there's also I don't even know the word to describe how much of the amazing things that we've contributed to this world, not just America, to this world
Mhm.
as darker skinned people.
Mhm.
Um, it's been a lot, and everything literally from the time I'm referring to with Kemetic spirituality and literally everything beginning there, um, mathematics, architecture, medicine, um, literature, like literally everything beginning
Mhm.
there. And then, unfortunately, because we are being taught by our oppressors in this country, we don't get that. We get, instead of being taught about people like Emotep, we get taught about Socrates and
Mm.
Galileo,
Mm.
who got their information from black people. And I
Wow.
don't mean to. I should have said this before, but I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers. But I'm not. I'm also not saying anything that cannot be found as facts. So,
Absolutely.
um, the there's a lot that we get told and not told, or taught and not taught.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And, the saying ignorance is bliss has really taken on new meaning for me because I felt like for a while I was very ignorant. I didn't have like a connection with my like plight as a black person in America. I just was living my life and finding my own way. And then I got confronted constantly with the plight. And I think that was good. But ultimately, it's like too much of that, I think, is also not healthy. And so I love this I love this conversation and this reminder.
Hmm.
Um, and I think even when you said Emotep, literally my brain, Emotep, what came into my mind immediately was the Mummy movies. I
Right.
think like
Of
the
course.
Mummy ride and all these
Hmm.
sort of negative depictions of these concepts. And so it has been really enlivening for me to learn more about these things and to not be afraid of some of the sacred ancient cultural practices and to realize that this is my DNA.
Yeah. One
It's
hundred
part
percent.
of me, you know?
100%.
So you have two children, right?
Hmm.
So what values, spirituality have you passed on to them? How are you approaching that with your kids?
Well, I am letting them kind of find it themselves. I don't want to just ram it down their throats because I feel like that's what most of us did or have had done to us. Um, again, I don't think my mom meant she didn't mean me any harm in
No,
taking me
yeah.
to church every Sunday. That's not. I don't believe that at all. But it was like you realize it's like okay, well, yeah, her mom did it, then she's doing it, and it's a trickle down. Everybody's like, yeah, we do things like that because that's what we got brought up to do. But if you if you take a second to kind of look at it and go, well, why do we do this? Other than the fact that we got told to do it, so
Mhm.
it's something that we do every week. But like, why do we do it? My journey. I probably should have mentioned this when you asked the question before, but my journey kind of started with what were Black people doing before Christianity, you know?
Mhm.
And a lot of people, again, I'm gonna say it again. I don't want to ruffle any feathers, but a lot of people will have you believe that, oh, well, Christianity started in Ethiopia.
Hmm.
No,
Mm.
it didn't. It was, and a very simple, quick read of Ethiopian history will tell you a Greek missionary brought it to Ethiopia. It didn't start there. Ethiopia may have been the first place in Africa to be, where they approached the emperor of, I want to say it was Axum, if I'm saying it right, and he converted and then said, "Okay, my people, this is what we're doing now." But um, I don't mean to veer off too far, but I'm just telling you what the normal argument is for my question was. Well, Christianity started in Africa. No, it didn't. No, it didn't.
I just
Um,
saw that the other day.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and I get it. We there are people and people that are very devout about what they believe, and I get it. I'm not saying you shouldn't be, but it's one thing to say you believe it started there, and that's where you're holding on to it. It's a different thing to to know the historical facts behind that. So
Mhm.
that's where I kind of am like, I don't want to tell you your business, but if we're going to speak facts, then let's speak facts. So
Yeah.
just saying all that to say, like my journey began with what were we doing before that,
Mhm.
and honestly, that's what led me to Christianity. Because if you read about it, you'll see in a lot of Western texts, oh well, it was what they call paganism, and paganism. My introduction to paganism was I thought, and this is gonna sound funny. Don't judge me. I thought pagans were like a group of people from pagan land, pagan town,
Oh,
pagan.
I did too originally. No
Because
judgment. It sounds
yeah,
like that in the Bible.
correct. So like in church, when I would hear, "Oh, that's paganism. That's paganistic. Those are pagans." Like I'm thinking they're like it's like a certain group of people that are called the
Yeah.
pagans. And in reading and actually stepping out of that environment and finding out what it really means, it's like the Christian slur for you ain't doing what we do, so you're a pagan.
Yep.
Um, I don't think it was invented. The word was invented by Christians, but I just think that Christians kind of took it and said, "Well, this is what if you ain't doing what we doing, then you're that."
Right.
Um, and that goes for anything. It was for Viking culture. It was for blacks. It was for I mean, anybody that was not that. So, having said all that to say, Western texts will teach you, yeah, in Africa there was paganism, but there's a name for that paganism. It's African spirituality. Now, of course, it has its own, depending on where you are, Sudan, Ghana, and all that. They had their own indigenous names for it, but it wasn't just paganism. There was a whole spiritual belief system that existed long before some of the other Abrahamic faiths came along.
Mhm.
So yeah.
I love that so much. And I think you've been talking about how paganism is like a really easy way to just discredit and sort of diminish all this other stuff, takes
Hmm.
away the power, right?
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
just pagan, oh, those little babies, they're
Hmm.
just this sort of condescension. And the more I've learned, the more I'm like so fascinated with all the forms of paganism.
Can I just tell you real quick? What's even more crazy is that the people that will tell you to speak against paganism actually participate in it more than they even know.
You know?
Every single practice, especially if we're gonna talk about holidays, like you realize, yeah, yeah, sure. You want to if you want to go with okay, Jesus Christ was born on this day, and here's how we celebrate it. That's pretty pagan. It's pretty. If you want to bury eggs, I'm sorry, not bury, but hide eggs in your backyard for the kids to go find. That's pretty pagan, But it's acceptable because we wrapped the birth of Jesus around it. But
Yeah.
it's still very, very pagan practice,
Yes.
if that's what we're gonna call it. So it's one of those things where it's such a weird, and I just didn't want to. I couldn't continue in it because I'm like, wait a minute, like I'm like, we're being pagans, at the time when I was still into the
Like it was
church
a
thing.
bad thing. Yeah.
I'm like, y'all are talking about not doing it, but we're doing it. Literally, we're doing it. But
Mhm.
don't do it, but do it. So I don't know. It was weird.
No, such an important point, and I think all of it to me is like I look back on my 20 years of dogma
Mhm.
in this cult, and I'm like, that to me is the power of trauma. That's the power of using someone's trauma to lure them into a message and a group and an environment.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy. Like
Yeah.
when you really get into the history of it, from the Catholic Church to things that certain popes enacted and sent out people to do in the name of the church, it gets pretty pretty bad. You know,
Wow. Yeah.
um, this was not an accident that we or a lot of us are in church, and it was a plan,
Mhm.
but
No, I believe that wholeheartedly. And
not
you've
to
got
ruffle any feathers, not to ruffle any feathers, but
feathers have been
it,
ruffled, I'm
it goes
sure.
it
Will be
goes pretty
ruffled.
deep. Yeah, it goes deep, and it's an ugly past. It really is. And when you talk about people of color, and I know that's a buzzword these days, but buzz phrase, but when you talk about melanated people and the role that we were forced into through invasion and colonization and conversion, it's ugly. It's not pretty at all. you know.
I,
Um,
I absolutely agree. And the more I've learned, the more I'm like, wow, so we just gave all our power away and we're fucking proselytizing about it.
yeah. I mean, and in some cases it was given away, and in a lot more cases though I think it was taken. You know what I mean? Like there was a lot of invasion um in black land on black land. Um and I mean still is today. You can take a look at Africa now and then it's kind of how it is here where the people that were indigenous here or are indigenous here, the land doesn't belong to them anymore.
Yeah.
You know,
No, that's a good point.
it's sad.
Taking this as given.
Yeah, it's really sad. Um, when they do the thing on tours in the islands and they say, "Oh, well, this country is under the you know school." I love kids, so the this country is under the British school curriculum, and England is billion miles in the other direction. These kids ain't never seen the Queen, but she's dead now, but they ain't never seen her. And God save the Queen. These children ain't never lay eyes on this lady or
Right.
whoever's in power. It's like these little brown children are learning about England, and they don't know anything about themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of like us,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
what black history in school covered what Dr. King, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, maybe Frederick Douglass a little bit
Not
of
a
Harriet
mouthful.
Tubman. You got maybe a good 7 or 8 figures throughout uh, elementary, middle, high school. You probably learned about 7 or 8 figures in Black history that were like important. But
Hmm.
I mean, literally, Frederick Douglass, George Washington Carver, maybe a little bit of Marcus Garvey. I don't know if I said him or not, but like I mean, you can probably name them on your both hands, and maybe have a couple fingers left over who you learned about all through school,
Yeah.
and that's what they smashed down Black history into. So it's
Well, and but then we watched like I remember watching Roots in history class and the like visual uh imprinting of slavery is was
just
palpable,
to
right?
remind you who you are. Yep,
Mhm.
this is who you are in this country. See, I wouldn't have, had it been me, and I had 2 teachers like this I can remember where they were like, "Nah, we ain't doing that." Um,
Mm.
I would like to think I would have been one of those teachers had I taken that route. I'm not showing Roots. I'm not showing uh what's the other one? There's another popular one um that it's like, oh, here's a Black history film for you kids to watch, and it's slavery.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
we couldn't see nothing about somebody being great. Come on now. I'm like,
Nerd.
I mean, it's one thing so that we know it and we know this is a part of history, but to uh,
Well, I think what to me it's like people get so caught up in why does it matter your skin color, blah, like in spirituality, right? Like we're all one. Why does it matter? And my friend and I were talking today. Friend, very white, grew up in the South, and it was like it's because it's our DNA, right? It's actually in our wiring, these practices, this way of looking at the world, this way of connecting with source, this all of that is in our wiring. So when we're taking our thousands years long wiring and trying to smush it into someone else's wiring, it doesn't work. And that's why you have, I think, the plight of melanation in
mhm,
America, right? Because
yeah,
our DNA is screaming for the truth as we knew it to be all along, I believe. And that's why it matters. Not because you or I give a shit about who's black or white or whatever. Ultimately, we are one. But like my human form matters and my human form relates to thousands of years of history, and that's why it matters, not because of the trauma, because of the glory of the years gone by that we've
Right.
just wiped away, you know?
Absolutely.
I feel
Absolutely.
so like today, especially because I'm like, I finally know who the hell I am. Like,
Hmm.
this is my DNA, and I see it in the culture. It's been chasing me my whole life. And I've been too busy worshiping Jesus and doing nonsense that has has been harmful for me. So,
Yeah. Because it doesn't teach you anything about you. It just teaches you, hey, this is what you're supposed to be doing,
yeah, it
and
just
you're not
robs
doing
me
that.
of my power.
Yeah.
Just no personal power. You give it all away as a Christian.
With
Every ounce of personal power, sovereignty, freedom, none of it.
with
And
with
that's not my DNA.
yeah. And that's why I say, like, I don't know if we can do like notes about this or leave notes for people that may want to watch, but that's why I say, like, this thing or that thing, it was a plan. And I mean a very
Mhm,
well thought out
mhm,
plan that has been executed for hundreds of years.
mhm.
What you just described about not being taught about you and not being taught about your people and not being taught about all the things that you have missed out on, that was on purpose.
Yeah. No, I believe that 100%. You've got these Christian conspiracy theorists running around about every fucking conspiracy in the world, except for the Christian conspiracy, which is the one I believe more than anything. And listen, I have friends that are still Christian,
Yeah,
who
of
consider
course.
themselves that way. To me, it's not even about the individual, right? It's about the institution, right? So it's like I don't my fight, I don't have a fight, but my fight isn't with the onesie twosie people practicing something that relates to them. My fight is with the institution and really freeing myself more than anything and giving other people permission to free themselves from this way of thinking, you
Yeah,
know? But
there's
it was a
there's a lot.
conspiracy.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes with that, and and like you said, it's not about the person down the street. It's I mean, it's about the entire thing that's been going on for hundreds of years that has literally broken people. They don't know, but the thing is, they don't know they're broken.
I didn't
You,
know I was broken. Yeah.
yeah, we can shoot down and, oh, that's evil and that's bad and that's this and that's that, and the things that we're talking about are things that our ancestors did.
Hmm.
What's even more crazy is there are people alive today that go, "Oh, my grandmother used to make a remedy for your cold, and she would go out in the backyard and pick a leaf or pick whatever and do this and that." And I'm like, you do realize though that's like black shit, right? Like that's what we did. Like that's and
That was the
so
only option we had.
correct. So I'm like, so then when you go and say, well, this ritual or pagan practice is evil, like, you do realize that's what your grandmother did for you. She was practicing pagan when she said, okay, well, let me go make up this concoction for you and let me do this and blah blah blah. And like we may have talked about this before, and I know you probably gotta get ready to shut it down, but I'm gonna just go real quick. I remember, I won't say the name of the show because I don't want to in, offend anyone, but saw the show, and it was a group of ladies, and one lady said, "Well, I'm gonna take the group on a trip." And the lady who was hosting the trip, she's pretty, she was very, Christian, but still very open minded to other things. One of the other ladies was not very Christian, very closed minded, very keep me away from anything that don't involve Jesus Christ. Okay, cool. So she says to the lady, "Well, look, y'all go ahead. I'm gonna take such and such over here because I want her to see something." She takes her lady. They were down in New Orleans. She takes the lady to a voodoo shop. The The lady who is very close-minded wouldn't even go in,
Yeah.
would not even step foot in the shop.
Yeah.
Um, the lady who's hosting tells her, she's like, "Look, I just want you to see something different. Open up to something different. Like it's just, I'm not asking you to become a voodoo practitioner. I'm not asking you to learn how to chant or anything like that. I ain't asking you to light nothing on fire, nothing. just ask, just asking you to go in and just see something different. Learn about
Mm.
it. You never know what you might learn." She was just, I mean, to put it lightly, she basically turned into a slave. "Oh,
Mm.
no, Lord Jesus, no, I can't do that. Lord, no, Jesus gonna be mad at me. Lord have mercy." And I'm not trying to make fun, but it was kind of sad to me because I'm like, wow, she doesn't even she's not even herself anymore.
Mm.
Just the sheer idea of even learning about some of our history and culture was like, it was so bad. It was evil to her.
Yeah.
Now, the real quick, the small little tidbit I'll say about voodoo is that voodoo is not the voodoo that we know from pop
Mm.
culture. Pop culture has turned voodoo into what people fear,
Oh, yeah.
and it's not just black magic, but it's black black magic.
Black magic.
It's black magic.
Yeah.
So that makes it even worse, because you don't ever see white voodoo practitioners on TV.
No, they're
So
witches, but they're
yeah,
like, you know,
but they're always though witches are always white.
yeah, yeah,
Voodoo practitioners are always black, weirdo looking people.
yeah. Weird teeth,
Yeah, yeah,
terrifying.
yeah.
Mhm.
Just fire in the background, torches, and just
Spears.
goat heads on the wall. Like, come on.
Yep. Human
So
heads. Yeah.
yeah, ears and whatnot. But it's like, okay, voodoo. Real quick, the history is it's called Vodun, which is a actual religious African religious system that is not based in evil.
Mm.
Contrary to popular belief, it's not a evil practice. Um, but because pop culture and they told us it was evil, that's what we went. That's what we go with. So it's just we have to learn about these things. We really do.
Well, and really quickly to that point, and I'm gonna wrap up because I have to pick up my kid.
Yeah.
But I started learning a lot about voodoo and hoodoo and all these practices, and I thought it was so cool, but something didn't fully resonate for me. And I learned today it's because I have that Taino background
Mhm.
that is what resonates. And today I was just like, oh, this is what. And so what's so amazing is that like even the safe space to me is about going, you can do you and
Mhm.
I can do me, not even you, Royce, but like
Right. Right. Right.
universal you, and find what resonates with like the deeper parts of you and sift through what doesn't, right? And I remember like meeting this woman at a woo-woo shop out here, and she was telling me all about these hoodoo practices. And I was like, cool, okay, 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 nothing wrong, but it just didn't do anything for me.
Mhm.
And now that I'm learning about all this Taino stuff, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is for me, right? And
Absolutely.
voodoo hoodoo is such a beautiful way of being. And all this ancient spirituality is all about a way of life, not just dip in at church and then, live the way you want the rest of the time.
Mhm.
But it's so misunderstood and misrepresented in the cultural lexicon that it fires me up. And
Absolutely.
so, yeah, and so I say all that to say like I love I love the DNA, the cultural, the like historical aspects of all of it because I just think it matters a lot more than we've been allowed to make it. And so I'm so glad for what you stand for and the things that you've shared and
Mhm.
the wisdom that you hold and the work that you've done to not continue that messaging on with your kids and,
Yeah,
that,
for
that it
sure.
stops with you. Um, and really quickly before we go, because I do have to run,
Yeah,
um, where can people find you if they want to stream your music and connect with you more?
gotcha. So I am on Instagram at the underscore real underscore arranger. Instagram is probably my uh most clicked on app on my phone. So I can be found there more than anywhere else. Music, you can find me on any streaming service. The Arranger is how you find it. Pretty simple. Yeah, like I said, I've been on it, been at it for a while with the music stuff. It is all instrumental, except for I got a few songs and more to come with yours truly over there, Miss Sasha Rose. So of course you can find her Sashiko Tiana, correct?
Mhm.
On all of her music, and you'll find what we have together on there as well. So yeah, yeah, all streaming services, anything you have, Apple, Tidal, Spotify, um,
Go
YouTube.
stream it. It's good stuff and
Thank
it
you, thank
makes
you,
you feel good. And I love that it's good for the whole family.
thank you.
True. That's
And
our
real quick before we go, I want to encourage you to dive. I'm sure you will, but dive more into the Tayano culture and history. There's a lot of history down there with you guys, a lot of it. So
I can't wait to
dive,
talk more. I've been like binging information and would love to talk more because yes, like
yeah.
I I'm like, oh, I have to like hang out with my kid now. I want to just like look at this stuff.
You gotta go be
But
a
yes,
parent.
I will for sure. And I'll ask you
Yeah,
questions and I'll bug you. Everyone go stream the Arranger's music. Go follow him on Instagram at the underscore real underscore arranger. And we'll catch you next time, pals.
absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All
Bye,
right.
y'all.
Bye bye.